everyone, and welcome back to another episode of What the Forensics. My name is Rebecca, and I am joined here again by the lovely Journey and Nicole. This week, Nicole is going to be teaching us all about the case of Tsutomu Miyazaki. Just before we get started, we just want to ask if you guys could leave us any reviews or comments wherever you're able to do that. So, YouTube, Spotify, I think Apple Podcasts, you might be able to leave reviews. It really helps us out. We love to know what you guys are enjoying, maybe not enjoying, what you want to hear more of. Also, make sure your apps are auto downloading. We can see downloads, but not individual listens. So it would just really help us out to kind of monitor our demographics. And finally, like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you can to stay up to date with our latest episodes and content. So once again, just before we get started, this is a little bit of a heavier episode. So I would like to note that because of the age of Miyazaki's victims, there are listeners' discretions advised, as we are going to be having discussions of child exploitation material, sexual assault involving minors, necrophilia, cannibalism, and suicide. So please take care while listening and after this episode. But with that being said, Nicole, would you like to tell us about what sounds like an absolute monster?
Yes, I would love to. And when I always kind of giggle when we say, I would love to. It's like, oh, I'd love to delve into this horrible human being and tell you all about him. But yes, as you can tell by the listener's discretion, he wasn't awesome at all. And yeah, so we'll get into that. But Tsutomu Miyazaki was prematurely born on August 21st, 1962, in what is now Akiruno City, Tokyo, as the eldest son of a wealthy family that owned and published a local newspaper, and that newspaper was known as the Akigawa Shimbun. And I guess it was like very well known within the city. It was kind of like their local news source. He was born with bilateral congenital radio ulnar synostosis. I got there. Did I say that
That is
right?
a
Judy?
mouthful.
I don't know.
say
I've
that one?
never said that
Okay.
word before.
Synostosis. This essentially just means that his radius and his ulna were fused together, preventing him from twisting his wrists and like turning palm up, essentially. And as we'll come to learn kind of later on with some comments, but I don't know if there was much deformity or if it was just more of a functional deformity, or if it was more visual as well. But I think there was a visual aspect to it. He supposedly faced a lot of bullying as a child because of this, and it's believed to be a part in why he was a bit of a loner throughout his adolescence and into his adult life. He didn't have very many friends, if any at all, and he just kept to himself. And his home life was also said to be quite turbulent, with his father having been accused of having affairs with other women many times throughout his life. And this resulted in whenever his wife kind of confronted him about it, I guess she would be beaten because of this. And I had also heard in one source, I really don't know how true this is because I couldn't find it elsewhere, but Miyazaki's birth mom, was actually like his dad's sister or his dad's daughter. So I think there was some incest going on, and then he ended up having like an adopted or another mom growing up with his father. But yeah, I think one of the sources said his birth mom was incestuous. It was part of an incestuous relationship.
Wow.
Don't put a lot of stock into that. Only one thing that I came across had noted that. But wouldn't be surprised. Given the topic
You've been finding all the incestuous cases.
Yeah. I don't know why. I'm not going in my way to do so. But yeah, one of the cases was using that as like this could be why he was not great. Like, not to excuse what happened, but just giving another laundry list of things that kind of went wrong in his early life. But neither of his parents had time to take care of him as a child, so they ended up hiring a man that worked with their newspaper, who ended up having an intellectual disability, to live with them and take care of Miyazaki alongside his grandfather. And I guess his grandfather was kind of like the only pillar in Miyazaki's life growing up and seemed to be his only real friend or only friend in general. So as the years kind of progressed, rather than going to school to study English and to become a teacher as he had initially planned, Miyazaki decided to go to a local junior college to become a photography technician. After graduating, it said that he began to take photos of the women's tennis team, many of which were indecent. Apparently, nothing was really done by the admin to hold him accountable for this, despite on times blatantly just camera right under their skirts, right under there to take photos. There were instances, some sources said, of him like in the locker rooms taking photos of them. Like it was just not awesome at all. And the
Yikes.
admin didn't do anything about it. He wasn't expelled. He wasn't, I mean, I guess this was after he graduated. He wasn't a student, but like cops weren't called, none of that.
I know this was like with actual cameras and not phones, but in Japan, by law, every single phone sold has to have the camera shutter button or the camera shutter sound on permanently. Like even if you have
Really?
on, because that like upskirting like photography was so rampant in like their subways and trains and like malls. And so yeah,
Oh
it's
my God.
the law now that they have to they have to have the shutter sound so that like people can tell when you're taking a picture.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, that makes sense.
I did not know that.
Could see that, yeah.
And this is why.
This probably led to that. Yep.
Crazy.
But yeah, around this time, he also began collecting videos, which included children's programs, anime, and graphic horror or slasher films. And he eventually gave up altogether on adult pornography and then gravitated towards child pornography and child sexual exploitation material. But of note, which is interesting and kind of mind-blowing to me, it wasn't until 1999 where the production, sale, and distribution of commercialization, of child pornography in Japan became illegal. So all while Miyazaki's doing this to produce, consume, like sell, whatever, so legal. Like there was no ramifications for it.
That is like mega fucked up.
Yeah.
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 Oh my
And
god.
it wasn't until 2014 where the simple possession of child pornography was made illegal.
Ew.
Ew. That is not long enough ago.
No.
Yeah.
What the fuck? No.
Yeah. And so this caused, from what I had briefly read, because I didn't go too deeply into like the whole law and when it came about and whatever, but from what I was reading, like a lot of anime and manga and these types of artists had like I don't know if they felt attacked by it, but they were trying to argue that that draws like a thin line as to like what then is child pornography and what is like okay and not okay. So
What are you
when they're drawing
drawing?
hentai, they shouldn't be. Yeah, don't reference children for your drawings.
at the time of we're recording and this writing, virtual child pornography though depicts wholly fictional characters is legal to produce and possess.
Disgusting.
So I think that's where the whole like hentai, anime, manga, that child, and I think it's the otaku kind of, we'll get into that later. I still am a bit confused by that. But those artists, that's like the line separating the two, I guess. I don't know.
Like, why do you want to draw that?
Yeah.
Why are people consuming that?
Yeah.
I
And
have a
how
hard
is
time
this
understanding.
illegal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a hard time understanding why people consume hentai. So child hentai is just like a whole other realm.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. That should be illegal as well. Just the depiction of child abuse. Oh,
Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking about it, all of the animes that I've watched, there's always one ridiculously sexy female character for no reason, and they are actually children. Because a lot of the time, it's like these children going to save the world or whatever, and there's just like one just sexy lady, and you're just like, hey,
Like, why?
why? Like,
Yeah, there's no
that's
need.
crazy.
There's no need for that. Yeah. And I forget, I'm trying to find the source as we're talking about it now too, but they like listed different names or like genres, I guess, of this anime or different anime styles. And much of them are like straight children shows, but meant for an adult audience.
Oh,
And
like
again,
with
it's like
real
the whole-
children?
No, sorry, like, but it's
Okay.
animated. Yeah,
Okay,
no, it's
okay.
like drawn and animated.
Like,
But yeah,
I
we
because
can't
no
yuck
children
anyone's
are being
yums,
harmed.
but yeah.
Yeah. But it's also weird.
Why?
But I'd rather you watch animated child porn than real child porn.
Yeah, if that's your thing.
Because then at least real children aren't being.
But then you also have to wonder who is acting as the inspiration for these child porn stuff then too.
Yeah.
Like they're getting it from somewhere, right? You can't just, I mean, I guess you can just make up a character out of your mind, but I feel like many of times you need an example to work off of.
Yeah.
Ugh, this whole thing just gives me the ick.
That's
right?
yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Again,
So
starting
anyways.
off really hot.
Yeah, you're
Thank
welcome.
you, Nicole.
The last two have been really great. But yeah, so keep in mind this whole time as we talk about what Miyazaki does in terms of like CSEM, which is the child sexual exploitation material, it wasn't illegal. So that wasn't like the of concern thing with what he was doing. That was just, sure, morally not great, but there were no laws against it that he was worried about, I guess. But yeah, Miyazaki would later testify that the first time he aimed his cameras at the genitals of young girls was in 1984 when he was 22 years old. Some sources said he straight up was like, camera lens inserted into the woman, camera lens in the child. Like, it just, he was not an awesome human being at all. Very
Yeah.
abhorrent, unlikable man. But in 1988, Miyazaki's grandfather and supposedly his only friend had passed away, which is believed to have been like the catalyst for what was to come and who he would turn out to be. When his grandfather was cremated, though, Miyazaki supposedly ate some of his ashes, and this was done as a ritual to revive him, supposedly, and or to retain something from him.
I understand like a lot of different cultures have a lot of different death rituals. But I think that was a little personal ritual of his. I don't think that's a common traditional ritual in Japan.
Yeah. I also would like to just advise against eating people's ashes. I don't think those need to go in your body.
Nope.
We don't
They
need
probably
to do.
don't taste great.
Nope.
Probably don't add much flavor.
Is it, this may be insensitive of me to say, is it like the cinnamon challenge? You guys remember that? Like,
Yeah.
is he spoon feeding himself like a spoonful of
It's essentially
ash?
like it's bone dust. Like you can't.
How do
Like
you
it's
eat that?
bad for you if you breathe that in.
Yeah.
And
I wonder if
you
it's really
can't
full of
digest
calcium.
it.
Oh, maybe.
And maybe some iron. Probably not iron.
Yeah. Your
It's a
daily
very
vitamin.
calcium-rich diet.
Just a spoonful of your grandfather.
I thought there was a Bones episode where a guy was like eating ashes. And
Okay, that's like
Bones
vaguely
was like-
familiar.
Bones was like, this is super bad for you. And he was having, or they were having a bunch of different health issues because of the ashes that they were eating.
Yeah, that checks out.
And like, I know it's not fact, but it feels like truth.
It feels like that,
that's
yeah.
what would happen.
Yeah. 3 months after his grandfather's death and 1 day after Miyazaki's 26th birthday, 4-year-old Mary Kono was abducted from Iruma City in Saitama Prefecture. And prefectures are like similar, I guess, to a municipality in Japan on August 22nd, 1988. Also, I would like to say I'm trying my best with Japanese names. I apologize if the mispronunciation and whatnot, but please correct me if I'm butchering these because I don't want to do that. But he had held sorry, this was on August 22nd, 1988. I don't know if I had said that. He had led Mari into the back of his Nissan Langley, where he had parked the car after driving a little ways and sat with her for about a half an hour just chatting, I guess. Mari then began to cry, and this caused Miyazaki to become nervous that it would raise suspicion, so he decided to hold Mari down and strangle her to death.
Because that's the only natural way to do that.
Get a 4-year-old to stop crying, yeah.
Yeah, that was a really fast progression.
Yeah. He then left her body in a nearby forest and would return the following day to record a video of himself assaulting Mari's corpse.
Gross. Ew.
Jesus.
Yeah. Mari's disappearance caused massive public distress within the community, with police cars patrolling the area and warning people to keep their children in sight and spending nearly 3,000 man days interviewing people around her home.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a lot. I read
That's
that and I
crazy.
thought it was like man hours at first, but I double checked. Oh, well, this is also coming from a translated, like a Japanese site translated into English, so it very well could be hours.
That's
Mhm.
fair. But
Either
still,
way,
that's a lot of time.
a lot of time spent interviewing people around the area. They also had 50,000 missing persons posters distributed, and they had tracking dogs brought in to help search. All of this to no avail, though, and nothing came of it. There were a few eyewitness testimonies, though, from people who reported seeing Mari in company of an adult man who was described to be about 5'6" with a pudgy face and wavy hair. Nothing really came of this. This was just an eyewitness statement. A postcard was then later sent to Mari's mother, which included a cryptic note saying, quote, "There are devils about," end quote. However, police dismissed it as a hoax, and nothing further came from this postcard or the eyewitness statements.
I feel like that's an accurate statement. Like, there are devils about.
Yeah, there are. At any point in time. This is true.
Especially, like, her daughter was killed. So, like, specifically
Well, they
for
just
her,
know
they're-
she's missing right now, but yes.
Oh.
Sorry. They just know that she's missing. They haven't found a body or anything. It's just she has not come home.
Okay,
But
when
still,
you said...
I feel like the police should have taken that more seriously.
Yeah, right? When you
I mean,
said that
yeah.
a video had been recorded of him, like, assaulting her corpse, I heard, like, posted. Like, I thought the police had found it. That I misheard that.
That's just for his disgusting own collection.
That's
which
gross.
we'll talk about later.
I love that.
So yeah, she's just missing at the moment. 4-year-old Mari is missing. No body's been found, but her parents have gotten this message or this letter saying there are devils about. Less than a month later, Miyazaki abducted 7-year-old Masami Yoshizawa on October 3rd, 1988. He offered Masami a ride, which she accepted, and then drove her to the same place he had killed Mari Kono. He then strangled Masami, stripped off her clothes, and sexually abused her corpse. He left her body only 100 yards from where Mari's decomposing body lay, keeping her clothes as a souvenir/trophy. Masami was reported missing that night, and search parties soon began afterwards, with thousands of missing persons posters distributed, but again, nothing came out of this. And they knew these girls were missing, but they didn't know much beyond that. They didn't have much to, well, they saw they didn't have much to work with. Looking back at it now, I feel like you had some stuff to work with, but it's in the 80s. I don't know. Masami's home was just under 13 kilometers from Mari's as well, which led police to suspect that the two disappearances were likely connected. And then 2 months later, on or around December 9th, 1988, Miyazaki convinced 4-year-old Erika Namba to get into his car. He then drove her to a park where he told her to undress and began taking photos of her, some of which were taken with the flash on.
Oh, that feels important.
Yeah, it does.
So during this, while he was taking photos, a car had ended up driving by, and he began to panic, thinking that this passerby in the car saw him taking photos of the flash, and I guess saw who he was taking photos of. I don't really know, but he thought the only logical thing to do was to strangle Erika and kill her because of this.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
That's always the solution for him.
Mm-hmm. Just strangle and kill, and then that solves all of his problems.
I was kind of hoping that he was going to let her go because he
Yeah.
thought that he had been seen. So
No.
he's like, oh, well, I'll just run
If I
away.
yeah, that's what I thought too, but no.
Mhm.
No. So he ended up wrapping Erica's body in a sheet, put her in the trunk of his car, and drove off. A little ways down the road, though, his car ended up accidentally sliding into a ditch and becoming stuck. And so he was scared of being caught with Erica's body in the trunk. So he decided to take her body out of the trunk, move her into the woods, hide her body, take her clothes, go back to his car. When he returned back to his car, there were two men there who had stopped, seeing that there was a car stuck on the side of the road, so they figured they'd help him. But they ended up helping him get his car out of the ditch, out of the side of the road, free him, and then Miyazaki just quickly got behind the wheel and sped off as fast as he could without even so much as saying thank you to them.
I can't imagine like the trauma of those people finding out that there was a child in that vehicle and all they were trying to do was be good Samaritans.
Her body wasn't in the trunk at this point because he had just moved it to the forest and like was coming back from dropping her body off. But yes, like
right.
in the vicinity, and like to know that that's what happened prior would be not awesome for them.
Also, did they not question the fact that he had like little girl clothes with him?
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my brain about how he hid that, or
Yeah.
like if that's just something in the sources that doesn't really make sense. My only thought would be maybe in his pockets.
Yeah.
It's not
that's true. Or
girls'
like
clothing
put them in his
isn't,
jacket or something.
Yeah, it's not as bulky as you would adult clothing, but still at the same time, that's the same like stream of that's the same thought process I had too in trying to figure out like where were they? What did he do with them? Did they not see them? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, he sped off in the car. The guys were kind of like, okay. But Erica's body was then found in a forest in Saitama Prefecture the following day by a forestry worker without her clothes on and with her hands and feet tied.
It's
When
so
the
sad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When the news broke about her murder, the two men who helped Miyazaki free his car came forward to the police. However, they had incorrectly identified his vehicle as a Toyota Corolla rather than a Nissan Langley. So this ended up diverting a lot of the police's time into looking into Corollas in the area and not the actual suspect car.
That's super unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree.
And like we were talking about this like a last episode. I wouldn't be able to tell them what kind of car it was. Like I very well could be the person that leads them wrong by accident.
Yeah. I would have to like preface everything I said to them to be like, I'm not a car person.
Yeah.
I know it had 4 doors. I know a general hue of the car, and if it was round or boxy.
And they look very similar.
Yeah, do they? I haven't actually
They
looked them
do.
up.
Okay. This is like Toyota Corolla.
Okay.
1985. I don't know.
Old boxy looking car.
Yep. Nissan Langley.
I'll give it to them. I'll give it to them.
This is giving find the difference between these two pictures. They're the same picture.
Yeah. I'll give it to them for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess like if you're going in with the confidence too to be like, this is what I saw, rather than I may have seen this, and I don't know if that's exactly what they did, but I would have liked to hope the police would be like, are there any cars similar that could be like misidentified, not just 100% going after that one type?
They get that little bit of tunnel vision where they're like, oh, they said Toyota Corolla, so it has to be Toyota Corolla.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we all know eyewitnesses are super reliable.
The most reliable, obviously.
Yes. But yeah, so after this, Miyazaki began stalking and tormenting the victims' families, and so he would call them at all hours of the day, often saying either nothing on the line when they picked up, or just like ominously breathing really heavily, as
I
one
hate
does.
both of those.
Yeah, right? When the parents obviously stopped picking up the phone because they didn't want to deal with that, this will show my age because I don't really know how phones work like this, but he would allow the phone to continuously ring, sometimes upwards of 20 minutes on end.
Wow.
Holy shit.
So I don't know if like the parent
Well, like-
can just like pick up the line, end the line, or if it just keeps ringing. I don't understand phones from the 80s.
I would
Yeah.
like just take it off the hook. Like if I'm getting enough spam calls where I stop answering the phone,
Yeah.
my phone is just always off the line.
Off the line. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if I
I
need
would
to make a
rather-
call, I will make a call.
Yeah,
That's
right?
fair.
Yeah.
And then
It seems like
20
the right way
minutes.
to do it.
Yeah. 20 minutes is just a long time of ringing. And I feel like there are
Mhm.
ways around that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, such as like you said, picking up and putting it back down. Like
yeah.
Yeah, like why
I didn't
didn't
even
that
know-
work?
I didn't even know
if they tried?
phones. Yeah, I didn't even know phones could ring for 20 minutes.
it
That
must have
seems
been
excessive.
before the like auto, like it rings 5 times or whatever before it sends you right to voicemail. Because I don't
Yeah,
even
'cause
think they would have
voicemail
had
didn't
voicemail then.
No,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have. But I guess I can't imagine it ringing until someone picked up, though, because what if you're not home? Does it just ring until the other person hangs up?
I guess.
This is showing our age. This is unfortunate. If someone's listening and wants to please educate us on how phones worked in the 80s,
That would be
Please.
appreciated.
please. I am always up for learning.
It's not our fault landlines became irrelevant in 2010.
Yeah. We don't know anything else. So, a week after Erica's murder, her father received a postcard with a message that read, Erica, cold, cough, throat, death. Obviously, not in English, this is translated, but that was his other kind of shtick, was sending these letters under an alias. And it was then in February of 1989, 2 months after Erica Namba's death, where Mary Kono's father returned home to find a box on his doorstep, a cardboard box on his doorstep, that contained ashes, dirt, charred bone fragments, 10 infant teeth, and photographs of Mari's shorts, underwear, and sandals. There was also a note that read, Mari, bones, cremated, investigate, prove. End quote.
Jesus.
That makes
Yep.
me so sad for the father. I can't even imagine opening
Yeah.
a box like that.
Yeah.
No. Oh my god.
Especially too when you have like the hope that she's just missing and that
Yeah.
she's not dead.
Yeah.
Which, to add to that, when they were initially examined, the teeth and the bones were actually said not to be Mari's, which gave
Okay.
the parents a lot of hope. And so
Yeah.
this was kind of shown on the news. They had not a press conference, but a station had shared that the mother was like, she may still be out there. Like, if these aren't hers, this is unfortunate that it's someone else's 10-year-old or it's someone else's child and 10 teeth, but it's not ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so sad because like this gives them such like a, I don't want to say false hope because obviously we know that the kid is deceased, but
Yeah.
like I can't imagine your child being missing and then the sheer panic of receiving that and devastation and then finding out that it's still a child's teeth, but it's not your
Mhm.
child's teeth. Like, jeez.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. And so I think Miyazaki had a similar thought process into like that false hope, but just went so south and so backwards with that, because when the media did release their statement and then them being hopeful about it not belonging to their daughter, Miyazaki then had sent another like statement or letter under the name of Imada Yuko, explaining that the teeth were in fact Mari's. He didn't want her parents to go on hoping any longer, and so this was his way of saying, like, you can not settle, but like rest assured, essentially, that your child's not coming back. This does belong to your child.
Like his own fucked up version of closure.
Yeah, exactly. And it was on or around the same day that Miyazaki had sent or they received Miyazaki's letter, that the initial examiner realized his error and concluded that the teeth were in fact Mari's. And he did this without seeing Miyazaki's statement too, apparently. So it was kind of like both happened consecutively, and so the parents got hit with both of that information at once, which I can't imagine how horrifying that would be.
This seems like it would be worse than them finding it and immediately finding out it's their kid's teeth.
Yeah, 100%.
I agree. Then when Mari Kono's family returned home from her funeral, they then found a letter labeled Confession, and this turned out to be a detailed description of the changes Miyazaki observed with Mari's corpse as it decomposed and the above information about the bones and the teeth. So I think it was this confession that Miyazaki had sent them, in which he had told them, like, the teeth are hers, the bones are hers. Sources were a bit unclear as to whether they were separate or if it was just this was the one statement he issued. Or I guess letter he sent under the fake name.
That's a crazy thing to send to the family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they have excerpts. I don't want to share it on our podcast, but they have excerpts online of like what he had described in it. It's like, what's the point? Why are you telling the family this?
Yeah, that is not closure. If anything, like, that's just going to destroy them even more.
It's gonna haunt them. Yeah.
It adds very much a sadistic aspect.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so he supposedly had removed Mari's hands and feet, keeping them in his closet, and then he burned the remainder of her body in a field by his house. And that's how he had obtained like the ash, the charred bone fragments, and Mari's teeth that he would then send to the parents. Police were able to determine, though, that the photos of like her clothing and the photos that were in the box, they were taken with a Mamiya, I'll go with 6x7 camera, one used almost exclusively by printers, and the box. And when they say by printers, I think like newspaper photographers and printers. Like that's what I get from printers. I didn't look deeper into that term though, or the role. And then the box was found to be a type used to ship camera lenses, and the typeface on the letters was determined to have come from a photo typesetter. Despite all of this information, though, the police failed to take action on any of these leads, and nothing came about all of it, unfortunately. On June 1st, 1989, Miyazaki spotted two schoolgirls and convinced one of them to take off her bottoms, and he began photographing her. He was chased off by neighbors. However, this did nothing to discourage Miyazaki, and only 5 days later, on June 6, 1989, Miyazaki saw 5-year-old Ayako Nomoto playing alone in a park. He talked to her about posing for photos and then lured her into his car.
Oh my god.
So gross. So gross. Kids don't know any better. Kids see a camera and they're like, ooh, take my picture.
Yeah. There's no nefarious... They don't even know what that is. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to speak for all children, but I don't know. Something
but
about...
many don't or shouldn't know what that is at the time.
Yeah. There's something about people taking advantage of vulnerable individuals, especially children, that just don't sit right with me.
Yeah. I just, like, I want to know what goes, like, what... Because convinced is such a, like, vague term. Like, did he have them at gunpoint? Was he like, your family is dead, you have... Like, how did he do that? Because to me, I guess, my frontal lobe is, like, fully developed, so... I'm not gonna let someone take photos of me with no pants on.
Yeah.
Especially a stranger.
Yeah. I think, so nothing was forcefully done from what I read. And it just sounded like he played like the whole nice neighbor act. Like one of the, I forget which of his victims, but there was a bridge that he had kind of crossed paths with her on. So rather than like following her, trying to talk to her and get her to then follow him, he kind of went around the other side, approached her on the other side of the bridge, knelt down to her eye level and was like, hey, like, along the lines of, I got something to show you. Like, if you really want to see, then you can come follow, but I'm not going to force you. So then he kind of like got up and walked the other direction. But as a child, I feel like they're very curious. So she had just kind of turned and followed him as well. So
Yeah.
it was none of the like random man coming up, grabbing a child and going. It was like a, let's go hang out together. Let's go
Right.
like play in a park together or something like that, from my
Yeah, that
understanding.
feels, his way of approaching it feels a lot more like the guy in the van that's like, hey, like I have candy or I have puppies. If you just come over here, like I'll just to show you, but you've got to come over here to see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like sparking the curiosity, I feel like, in my opinion, at least in these children, which is
Yeah.
what gets them to go with them.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know, speaking personally at my point of view, like, I can't remember as a child if someone were to like, I mean, if they were asking me to pull my pants down, maybe I'd be like, I don't know about this. But like, you
Yeah.
also, I feel like I'm a very trusting person. So I'd be like, okay, like there must be a reason for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I can't be in the brains of these young girls, but
Yeah.
it's hard. It's a tough situation to be in, for sure. While in the car, Ayako had made a comment about his hands, which had actually angered him, and this common theme resulted in him strangling her, unfortunately, which makes me think there was a visual disability to it. So yeah, he ended up strangling her. He drove home with her body in the trunk, and he ended up stopping to pick up a video camera on the way home with her body still in the trunk.
So, sorry.
Yep.
He, like, how did his, so he can't rotate.
Yeah.
So would his hands be stuck like this or like this?
Like that, I think, with his palms down. Because the difficulty is rotating up, because you have, these are fused, so you would have to like move the arm because you
Yeah.
don't have the rotation in your,
like this.
yeah.
According to pictures, it very much made a difference in appearance.
Yeah. If you see the
Yeah.
really long, lanky photo, that's not his actual hand. Apparently, that's been fact checked.
What? Okay, never mind then.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I saw that and I was like, ooh, those are not pretty hands.
Yeah, those are not pleasant.
But I don't believe those are his actual hands.
Okay, interesting. I guess that makes sense. That's literally the only picture of a hand that keeps getting attached to his face.
Yeah. Right. But
Because I'm just trying to figure out like
where
how he's able to strangle these children as well as drive a car.
Yeah, so it would be, I think it's palm down for 98%. And it's not like he's incapable of rotating, it's just more difficult and not as simple as we can do it.
Right, okay.
And so I think the fusion happens like mid forearm too. So it's a lot of like full arm movements.
Right, okay.
And so I think the fusion too may cause some disfigurement, like up in the actual wrist. Because I've heard other people say that it was a fusion between the wrist and like the hand bones here.
Okay.
Oh,
So it could be like a fully along the arm thing. I don't know. I'm not a medical doctor. So over the next few days, Miyazaki then took photos and videos of Ayako's corpse in various explicit poses and while engaging in sexual acts with her or with her body in his home. He then dismembered her body, hiding her torso in a public toilet and placing her head, arms, and legs in woods nearby. Ayako's torso would be found 5 days later, but the police still had no idea who they were after. And Miyazaki supposedly kept some of her flesh at home and ended up cooking it over a fire in his backyard, according to some sources, and eating it. Other sources say he kept her hands and ate part of them and then drank her blood.
I
don't really know.
So unpleasant, like every aspect of it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what we know of what he did comes from him specifically too. So I don't know to what extent all of this is like
how truthful.
Yeah, because like I don't have access to like the trial documents or any of this stuff. So I think there is some truth to it all. I don't know the truth to the specifics of it.
That's fair. Like maybe he did keep a hand, or maybe he did keep ashes, but it was of the hand, or
yeah. And we do know, like after they search his home and stuff like that, like we do know body parts were found in his house. So we do know he was keeping the like parts of his victims. But that we know is true, but it's the like eating aspect and the drink. Yeah, the cannibalistic part of it all, we're not sure right now on, given the information we have access to.
Fair enough. For the kids' sake, I hope he didn't eat them.
Yes, I agree. He apparently grew nervous that he would be discovered, though, so a few weeks later, Miyazaki returned to the woods and brought Ayako's head and other body parts back to his home and kept them in his closet as well. In July of 1989, Miyazaki found two sisters, aged 6 and 9, in a park in Hachioji, I believe it is. He managed to convince the younger sister to walk with him to a nearby river and instructing the older sister to stay behind. And again, saying convinced, I believe it's just like he managed to persuade her, asked her to come hang out, whatever. I don't believe there was much force, but then again, I can't say for sure. So this older sister, she immediately ran to her father, thankfully, to tell him about taking the little sister into the forest, basically.
That's good. For some reason, I just kind of assumed that like the older sister would have followed the younger sister just out of safety, but it's better that she went to her dad.
Yes, I am so thankful that she went to her dad in this situation. Yeah, she immediately returned to her father, and the father then returned to the site with the daughter to find Miyazaki taking photos of his naked 6-year-old daughter.
That's so wrong. That's so wrong.
And thankfully, like any father should hopefully do with catching someone doing this to their daughter, he managed to attack Miyazaki. And thankfully, I hope he got a couple hits in, but unfortunately, Miyazaki ended up managing to break free and quickly fled the scene on foot. But by leaving, I know, coward. But by leaving the scene on foot, this left his car behind at the scene. So the father ended up calling the police and filling them in on everything that what happened. And Miyazaki, for some reason, decided he was going to return a little bit later to fetch his car. And lo and behold, the police were there waiting for him at his car and arrested him. So they arrested him for forcing a minor to commit indecent acts. And it was about 17 days later that Miyazaki broke and confessed to killing Marikono, Masami Yoshizawa, Erika Namba, and Ayako Nomoto. And the detective inspector had visited Miyazaki's family home in August of 1989. And there he found Miyazaki's room filled with close to, if not more than 6,000 videotapes stacked throughout his room.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Of like, was it all stuff that he had taken?
Not or all like that he had taken.
Okay.
But it's all like anime, manga, horror slasher films, child pornography, adult pornography, his home videos. Yeah. Just not great. And a search of his house also revealed human remains, films, photography, and clothing belonging to the 4 girls. The discovery of his extensive collection of anime, manga, hentai, child pornography, horror and slasher films, and other pornographic material led to the press dubbing him as the Otaku Killer. And from a brief Google, otaku is supposedly a young person obsessed with computers or particular aspects of pop culture to the detriment of their social skills. I don't know if... Yeah. I don't know if it's always to the detriment of their social skills, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, like, obviously there are... Not every otaku is a terrible person, but there's definitely just a heightened interest in this material. And it doesn't always have to be like child pornographic material, obviously, but it's specific interests in pop culture, I guess.
Interesting.
And so this dubbing him as like the otaku killer supposedly triggered a widespread moral panic against otaku in Japan. And it was said to be similar in ways to like the satanic panic in America.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I
Because it would
think
have been
this
happening around the same time too, I think.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this also kind of goes hand in hand with the previous conversations we were having about like anime, manga, hentai artists and like trying to stand up for like their art form and being like, well, no, this isn't always the case. But then you have this gentleman, I'm not going to actually call him that because he's an asshole, but this abhorrent human being killing these girls and like using that realm of art and pop culture to like not justify what he's doing, but like as an explanation and means for kind of what caused his interests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that they focus more on like the anime hentai aspect and less of the horror thriller slasher film aspect.
Or just the child pornography, adult. I mean, I guess it's not illegal at that point, but like
But
the
still,
vast
like,
array.
I feel like morally that should have still been an issue for a lot of people, even if it wasn't illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
No, I agree. And I don't know if it's like just the prevalence in culture at the time or what, like if it was just that was the topic of conversation and it has been or still is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. On trial, he made statements such as, quote, "I committed the crime in a dream I could not wake up from," end quote, or "a rat man appeared," end quote, or "the crime was a ritual to resurrect my dead grandfather," end quote, and "I burned and ate the girl's body," end quote. So this is where I think like much of what we know about the cannibalistic aspect of his crimes is just coming from him, and I don't know if we can really take it for its at face value.
Yeah.
But this rat man that he says has appeared was supposedly Miyazaki's alter ego, who he said was the one who committed the crimes and convinced him to stalk and kill the young girls. I don't know why Ratman was the way to go for that, but that's...
Is that picture of the Ratman one that Miyazaki drew?
That's from my understanding, that's his drawing, yeah, of the Ratman.
That's hilarious.
And from some of the sources too, I believe he like drew the Ratman on the letters he was sending to the victims' families too, as like a little alias signature.
Oh,
okay.
He even gave the Ratman a penis.
Yes. Okay. Funny you should bring that
up.
What
the fuck is up with that? Why is the tail on the front?
No, the tail's on the back. The penis is on the front. He just doesn't really get the depth.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, it's foreshadowing.
Okay, because it looks scary. Okay, yeah, no, I see the definition should be on now. Back. Okay, yeah.
But funny you should say that because one, also the top left one, I think that's supposed to be the face. Very much looks phallic though. Some of the sources were saying that there were rumors going around when Miyazaki was a child that he had a very small and thin penis, as in like the width of a pencil. And I think that really hurt his ego. And if I were to say anything, I think Ratman spawned a bit from that.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
This whole Ratman is really like making me think of the dog in the Son of Sam case where he's like, the neighbor's dog really do it. And he's like, the Ratman. Because I feel like they were around the same time, were they not?
I think Son of Sam was the 70s.
Okay, yeah.
76 to 77, yeah. So this would have been like a decade and a bit later.
Okay. Yeah, I thought they were closer in time. And I was like, it feels very similar for him to be like, no, I didn't do it. The Ratman did it. The Ratman told me to do it. But that's just his alter ego.
Yeah. Not that, I mean, I guess it is creative. Sure.
It's also like, it's kind of accurate. Like it's
It's a rat. He's sleazy. He's dirty. He's gross. I don't want anything to do with it. Yeah.
Exactly. He's got a penis like a rat tail. Like,
Yeah.
it's just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's pulling from a lot of personal experience there, it seems.
I see it. I get it.
But yes, Miyazaki was subjected to various psychological tests throughout his proceedings, but was ultimately declared sane, responsible for his actions, and fit to stand trial. I think they had like 3 or 4 psychologists run some tests with him. Some were saying he was suffering from schizophrenia. Others were saying that he was sane. It was just kind of all over the place, but they ended up coming to the conclusion that he was able to he was fit to stand trial. And because of this, when he was found guilty on April 14th of 1997 for the 4 murders, he was sentenced to death. So I think if he was found not to be fit to stand trial, he wouldn't have been given the death sentence, from my understanding. So on November 21st, 1994, though, this would have been about 5 years after Miyazaki's arrest, his father, I guess, supposedly had made arrangements to actually pay compensation to the victims' families. They were all disgusted, rightfully, of what Miyazaki had done, but he ended up jumping off the bridge and taking his own life because of the impact that Miyazaki's crimes and everything had on him. And supposedly Miyazaki seemed to be very unfazed by this and almost glad for it to happen. He was just like, it is what it is. Like, okay.
This might be insensitive of me to say, but I have zero sympathy for Miyazaki's father, given that Miyazaki is more than likely the product of an incestual relationship.
Yeah.
And also abused him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got what you deserved. I'm sorry.
Yeah, live with the consequences, albeit them being horrific. It's like, I don't know, find ways to work through it, do more for the victims' families than, like, yes, pay compensation to them, but, like, I don't know, find other ways to not be a horrible human being. This is such like an easy way out. It's such an easy way out.
Yeah, it feels very like almost selfish in a sense of like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe this is happening to me. Like, I can't believe my son would go and do this. And it's like, okay, but think about the victims' families. Think about what he did to other people. Like, it's not about you. Yes, it's hard for sure.
Yeah.
You helped create that monster. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I
and
agree.
that doesn't go for every single serial killer's parents, I imagine, but for the large majority, they played a strong hand in the shaping of their child.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding. Right on the money on that one. Okay. Anyways, throughout the nearly 20-year-long judicial process, Miyazaki never once showed remorse for his abhorrent actions.
Damn.
Even up until the date he was hanged in June of 2008.
What?
Yeah.
What?
2008. So his father really took the easy way out.
Yeah.
Really took the easy way out in 94.
Damn.
And Miyazaki's there.
I can't believe it took 20 years for that to, like, that's a long time.
Yeah. I don't understand why the death penalty takes so long. But at the same time, like, I guess it's sort of a good thing because they have to, like, rot in prison for, like, a couple decades first.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can understand, like, I don't know how the Japanese judicial system works, but I'm like, in America, there's so many falsely accused people that are on death row, right? But when you have clear-cut cases where this man killed 4 young girls, abused their bodies, and did all of these terrible things, why waste your time? Why wait? Just say bye. Peace.
And I feel like it should almost, like, it would cost less to...
Yeah, I don't know.
Execute.
They were hanged, so I would assume it costs less because I've heard that debate too between, like, what costs less, like housing an inmate for 10 years or giving him a lethal injection. And I've heard people debate that it's similar in cost. I don't know how, but
I feel like
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
only similar in cost because it's the United States.
This is true. This
Yeah.
is true.
Because you had to feed and clothe and like house him for 20 years.
Take care of his
Yeah.
like dental, medical, everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. When he could have just died.
Yeah.
And then you have room for other people who need to be in jail. Like it,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It,
It's definitely a tough conversation too, because like we don't know the Japanese judicial system
Yeah,
or like
yeah.
the prison system or whatever. Because like in jail, much of it is privatized, so the jails are being paid per inmate,
yeah.
which is why it's easier for them to like keep them for longer. It's not them technically paying to feed them; it's taxpayers or like
Right.
community members that are the money's going to them to pay for that, from my understanding at least. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if that's the case in Japan or was
Yeah.
the case or whatever it is, but I 100% agree. Like, especially if it's by hanging too. $10 in rope, okay?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Sorry, but
It's not.
it's not a laborious process, in my opinion. I've never hanged anyone. I've never been a part of the process. I'm speaking just from my brain, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And especially in these cases where it is very obviously like cut and dry, he did it.
Yeah.
Be done.
What's the point?
Yeah. Because
There is, like you said though, Rebecca, some satisfaction in just rotting away. If he was rotting away though, maybe he was treated really well in prison. That would be unfortunate. I have no idea.
I find most often child predators are not treated well in prison.
Yeah, that's true.
This is also very, very, very true.
Yeah. I don't know. That's tough.
It is, yeah. A big, tough conversation or discussion, debate. I don't know what you want to call it. But anyways, his final words to a court-appointed psychologist prior to his hanging were supposedly, "Please tell the world I'm a gentleman."
Oh,
and I say, fuck you to that, actually. You are not a gentleman, and the world does not need to know.
No.
Yeah. So
the world needs to know what an abhorrent human he was, but
opposite of a gentleman. But yeah, that is Miyazaki. And so he's also known, what is he also known as? The Otaku Killer, the little girl's murderer, I think it is, the Rat Man, and what was the other? The vampire,
the Human Dracula.
Human Dracula. That I don't know if holds a lot of weight to his crimes, but if he did end up drinking some of his, like, the blood of his victims and eating them, then sure.
Yeah.
But just another moniker. I feel like the press and public love just giving names to people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sensationalizing them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for leading this discussion on a very brutal case. Definitely take time after this episode. This one's for our listeners. Have a cup of tea, maybe like, I don't know, watch or read something nice and cozy. Get your mind out of the gutter that this was, because it was very dark. Super interesting. It's crazy that people like this exist, and I think it's important that we learn and talk about them, because we need to learn the signs, what people are capable of. Yeah, but definitely take care after this discussion. And actually, it's funny, I've noticed a couple similarities in your case to the one that I'm going to be covering next episode.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Just before we head on to our outro, I see that Journey has a forensic corner to share with us today.
Hopefully a little lighter than what this was, to bring us
very much so. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So the first prehistoric person with missing X chromosomes was identified from ancient DNA in January of 2024, which is last year.
Wow.
So this research team had developed a new computational method to detect more variation when counting the number of chromosomes in ancient DNA, specifically the X and Y chromosomes, which, if you don't know, are the sex chromosomes. And so this new method, they applied it to a data set from the 1,000 Ancient British Genomes Project, and it identified 6 individuals with chromosome aneuploidies, which just means extra or missing sex chromosomes or copies of a chromosome. And so 3 individuals had Klinefelter syndrome, which is when genetic males have an extra X chromosome, so they're XXY. Right. They had lived across different time periods, ranging from, I think, Iron Age to like post-medieval age or whatever one is after medieval age.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so they were able to see in their bones that they were all taller than average and showed signs of delayed development at puberty.
Wow.
Taller than average surprises me.
Yeah, and I don't know how they figured that out. I haven't read this. Like, I'm going to do a better write-up, but it's very cool. One individual had Turner syndrome, so that's when genetic females only have one X chromosome. And so it's unlikely that they went through puberty and started menstruating, even though they were 18 or between the ages of 18 and 22 when they died. And their DNA was specific enough to show that the individual's Turner syndrome was mosaic, which means that some cells had one copy of the X chromosome while other cells had 2.
Oh, so it wasn't
funky.
Consistent throughout.
Yeah, which is really cool. And she was from the Iron Age, so about 2,500 years ago, which is crazy.
That's mind-blowing.
That is crazy.
Another individual had Jacob's syndrome, which is characterized by an extra Y chromosome, so they're XYY, and they were from the early medieval period. And then the last individual that they found was actually an infant who had Down syndrome, and they were from the Iron Age.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Really interesting. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I can't believe we have the capability of finding out this stuff.
I was just going to say that.
Wild.
It's insane that we can actually like I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but
like
we can
quantify
actually
and stuff like that. Like we have methods.
Yeah, and we can actually like look at the genome of people that lived like 2,500 years.
Yeah, so that is my forensic corner. I think it's really cool that we have the technology to do this.
That's really neat.
It's incredible. That's so cool. I hope as we learn even more from all of these studies that we just get like even better at studying the genome. And obviously that's part of the purpose of this, but genome stuff is so cool. DNA is so cool.
It's so cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I find I have such a like special interest in like medieval history and just history in general, but I think finding this information really personifies what we learn about the people that lived back then, and it's not just like a different time that people lived. It's like, no, these people actually were very similar, obviously, to how we are today, and their day-to-day was like could be very similar.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know, easier to connect with them, I guess.
And I feel like, yeah, if you were a person with any one of these chromosome abnormalities, you would feel like I would feel really like reassured almost, like I'm not weird. Like this has been happening for 2,500 years. Like I'm normal in a sense. Like this is
historically you're normal. Like it's a little less common, but it's still probably been in thousands and thousands of people throughout the years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, so cool. Thank you so much. Thank both of you so much for teaching me something new today. I hope our listeners also learned something new today, but please, I want to reiterate, just take a little extra care of yourself after this episode because it was a particularly dark one. With that said, the next topic that we will be covering is another crime that occurred in East Asia. So we're just on a little bit of a trend right now. So this next episode will be on the topic of Ahmed Saraji. And if you want to find more information about us or our content, you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok, all at What the Forensics. Or you can go to our website, which is whattheforensics.ca. It's your one-stop shop for everything forensics. You'll find our sources, our images, little about us, all of our forensic corners. One-stop shop. It's everything. And if you have any comments or concerns, episode recommendations, just want to chat, our email is whattheforensics@gmail.com. So this has been another episode of What the Forensics. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time. Bye!
Just a reminder to everyone that we are not professionals in the forensic science field. We are just interested in forensics and want to share what we are learning with our listeners. We're trying to give you the most accurate information, but we are human and can make mistakes. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you next week.